You know, come to think of it, there really hasn't actually been that many games out this year. I mean, sure, there's been a few, but I don't know. Slow year, I suppose. Way too busy with work, and what free time I have is taken up with Xenoverse anyways. Fuck it. Maybe I'll just not bother with a top 10 this year. Yeah, you know what? Definitely. That's for the best. No top 10. Oh? What's this? Oh, no. Hello and welcome to Steven's Top Games of the Year 2018. Who here's old enough to remember 2018? All the way back then in, well, 2018. Yeah, I know this video came out a bit late. I did say on the RSG Twitter that it wouldn't be out till at least a couple of months into the new year, but gotta keep the tradition going, and I do always enjoy these end of year sum-ups. Or start of the next year. Shut up. As always, I have to stress this is a personal listing and not to be taken as any attempt to assert that these are the definitive best games of the year, because nobody plays everything, certainly not me, and everyone's preferences are different. Some people, so I've heard, actually like derivative battle royale cross-survival games. Don't ask me how, but each to their own. Point is, these are always just a chance for me to express how I felt about anything that I played this year, so totally my tastes. Not that I managed to play a damn thing in 2018. For those interested, here is my work schedule for the last half of the year. Everything in red is where I'm literally stuck in the middle of the North Sea and can't record or play a fucking thing, and now here's just a few of the games that came out during this time. And people ask me why my Xenoverse videos take so long. Right, that's enough, let's get on with it. Number 10. Nier Automata. Again. But also with Geralt from the Witcher series. And also Skeletor for some reason. Robbie Rotten? Everybody is here. Yeah, Soul Calibur 6. So in all honesty, this is totally a filler spot on the list. But it's not qualifying for the No Man's Sky position that number 10 spots in previous years have fit because, well, I haven't played a ton of it, and I'm not really sure how much there really is to it, it's still a pretty fun game. So, I've never played a Soul Calibur game in my life, let's just get that out of the way first. I knew it was that one game that had Star Wars characters in it one time. That's about it. So, why did I get this one? Well, two reasons. Firstly, the promise of extensive character customization, which, if you know me, is a major selling point for pretty much anything. And a bit like XCOM 2, I've probably spent more time in the character creation menus just fucking about than playing the actual game. And the second reason is, 2B was a downloadable character. So yeah, pretty much a guaranteed buy just from that alone. Also, what the fuck titties, the game itself is typical fighter combat centered around swords and other melee weapons. There are two different story modes, sort of. One has you going through the individual stories of the different characters, taking place in an overlapping fashion around the 16th century. Ah, the 1500s. The century of Magellan, William Shakespeare, and BDSM Italians, apparently. Alternatively, there is a larger story mode in which you take a character of your creation through the plot surrounding something evil, bad guy, big eyeball sword? I have no fucking idea. Either way, since I couldn't seem to select any of the custom characters that are already made, for this, I just wrangled something up. Aside from not really giving a shit about the plot, my biggest and really only problem with the story mode is that they clearly follow the tell, don't show mantra of storytelling. I mean, for fuck's sake, every 30 seconds of gameplay is preceded by 5 minutes of slideshow dialogue. Eventually I just started skipping through all this because it was just boring aside from the half-decent artwork and at least some voice acting.
You appear to be from a foreign land, or am I mistaken?
Do you get to the Cloud District very often? Oh, what am I saying? Of course you...
Oh, fuck off, Keith Silverstein. The combat itself is actually a lot of fun, with a whole variety of fighting styles to choose from staffs to dual blades, longswords, and whips. Sure, you do you. Every character's fight style comes with a number of special attacks, which are just visually awesome. And there's a surprising amount of combos and moves which, from what I can tell, I've barely scratched the surface on. And a particular mechanic I enjoyed known as Reversal Edge essentially moves the fight into slow motion for a few seconds, allowing both combatants to make a move in a sort of rock, paper, scissors thing, in which a sidestepping attack will beat a vertical swipe, or a launch attack will beat a horizontal swing. Maybe not quite explaining it fully, but either way it's a cool matrixy moment in fights. But to quickly talk about character customization, I'm a little disappointed to be honest. Given this was a major selling point for me, there's a lot less options here than I was expecting. I'd seen some really good, pretty funny designs online, but in my case, I felt the options of clothing, body types, hair and everything was just very limiting. Might have something to do with this season pass and customization DLC hoarding the bulk of clothing options. So that's great, but whatever, it's still pretty fun to try and experiment with what you've got, and with access to all the fight styles and the ability to customize most of the already in-game characters, there's a fair amount you can do. Anyway, I've not had much of a chance to play it in depth, so not a totally fair review here, but even so, I've had a bit of fun with it. Number 9. So, it's no secret that I am a huge Fallout fan. Fallout 3 and New Vegas are among my top games of all time. I adore the originals and have completed them multiple times each, with Fallout 2 in particular up there as one of the greatest RPGs ever made in my opinion, and even though I have a lot of issues with Fallout 4, mainly from a role-playing angle, it's still a good game that I sunk a ton of time into. So with all that said, I was pleased that 2018 gave us yet another fantastic Fallout experience. 76 what? Oh, no, not that piece of shit. Atom RPG, post-apocalyptic indie game. Yes, that is the actual title. Is a turn-based isometric RPG in the style of, and heavily inspired by, the original Fallout, a post-nuclear role-playing game. Yes, that is the actual title. As a big fan of those original Fallouts, this was a really easy game to slide into, the gameplay being practically identical barring a few additions. If it wasn't obvious from the game's title, this is an indie game, and the similarities it shares with the Fallouts are in no way hidden or underplayed, with even the occasional cheeky reference. But the fact is, this is a love letter to those original games and the classic style of turn-based RPG. Hell, they even go all the way and start with their somehow even more melodramatic Ron Perlman War Never Changes intro.
Without sparing neither the innocent nor the guilty, without naming a victor to the bloody war.
Yeah, we get it, everything's bleak and awful. Set in the former Soviet Union following the outbreak of nuclear war in 1986, you're part of a pre-war government program called Atom, tasked with bringing about the return to civilization. Like any good Fallout story, your quest begins as a simple, go fetch thing. Whether that be the water purification ship, the Gek, or a lost and or kidnapped family member. Here, we have to locate a General Morozov, whose expedition to locate a secretive bunker 317 has disappeared, and we are tasked with discovering what happened to them. And like any good Fallout story, note I am saying good Fallout story, this leads your character off into a crazy adventure with much more at stake than first thought. At least I have to assume that's where it's going, because I've played enough Fallout to see the pattern, and I haven't actually completed Atom yet to say for certain. Come on, it's a big game, I spent hours just in the first settlement doing every pointless side quest. It's what I do. Thankfully the game does come with a bit of levity even amidst the awful setting, with some actually decently written and interesting characters, all of whom come with their own portrait unique to them. That's actually quite impressive given the number of NPCs that exist. Sure, the art style lacks consistency at times, varying from more arty to straight up photograph, but it's still good and usually accurate to the character model too. My favourite guy I've met so far is this old former language professor turned reluctant bounty hunter. He doesn't even like violence, just turns out he's really good at it. He's a nice old man. I want him as a companion. Character creation is as detailed as you'd want it to be for a game like this, with different skills for unarmed combat, first aid, stealth, rifles, pistols, whatever your preferences are, as well as a huge variety in portraits, which, though physical character customization is not a thing here, seems to have some small bearing on how your character model will turn out, like hairstyle or beards, though there is also the option of starting clothing. Though actually fairly light on combat, at least as far as I've played, it runs much the same as I'm used to. Hell, even the old trick of swing at enemy, run away so they'll use all their AP trying to get back in range just for you to swing and run again, works here. But certainly, even compared to Fallout, early game here is a nightmare for trying to find ammo and weapons. It took me maybe 3 or more hours before I even got a weapon, and even then, all I could find was a single 7.62 round for it. Thank fuck I got a critical headshot when I finally did use it. All in all, it seems to still be a work in progress, though despite ongoing tweaks, it's still a completely playable game as of its official launch late 2018. I don't look at indie stuff often, but I thought this deserved some praise, and if you like those older Fallout or Wasteland games, all I can say is definitely it's worth a look.
darkness of the afterlife is all that awaits you now. May you find more peace in that world than you found in this one.
Number 8. Monster Hunter World. This was one of the first games I got in 2018, yet despite quite enjoying what I'd played up to a point and the presence of a lot of good stuff, I just found it really hard to get into and eventually just impossible to make any progress in. At least not without going online and playing the missions with other people. Steven doesn't do that, so guess I'll just never complete it. Monster Hunter World puts you in the role of a hunter, joining a big old expedition to the New World. Presumably named the New World because it's a new world, apart from the rest of the Monster Hunter series? I don't actually know because this is the first one I've ever played, but either way, this means we get to start with my favourite part of any game as we make our character. And also our cat thing. As we go through all the introductory cutscene stuff, immediately this game reminds us it's Japanese because everyone's just so fucking happy and overly expressive all the goddamn time, and I hate it. Apart from that one bit that happens every time you order food. It's cute. The game itself has you accepting contracts from the home base and hub, which sends you out into one of the regions of the New World, each of which are self-contained maps, this is not an open world, to hunt down creatures and help towards the expedition's research, which in general is focused on the fauna of this new continent, but primarily towards Zora Magdaros, a big dragon boy whose migration across the sea to this land brought us here in the first place. The hunts themselves are pretty cool. There's no class system to speak of, so you're free to try out all the weapon classes, of which there is a heckin' lot, and specialise in whatever the hell suits your playstyle. Weapons are of course stupidly oversized, just in case we still weren't convinced this was a Japanese game, with me initially thinking, oh, I'll give the katana a go. A quick, one-handed weapon, probably lower damage than a greatsword or axe or something, but a nice, straightforward, melee, weighs as much as a family car, can cut mountains in twine, what the fuck. To be perfectly honest though, I just didn't like the combat system. Again, I have no clue how this compares to previous Monster Hunters. I don't know if this is standard or if this is just because of the whole online element, but it feels at times like I'm playing an MMO, compared to the faster or freer combat of something like Horizon Zero Dawn, which I was kind of more anticipating this to be like. I couldn't stand some of the controls. If you're in combat with your weapon out and try to sprint by clicking forward on the analog stick as you naturally would, you stop and painfully slowly put away your weapon because you can't run with your weapon out. Since in the end I went with using a bow and arrow, I was constantly getting out of range warnings on targets, barely any distance from me. Again, just striking me with those MMO vibes where enemy mobs are assigned to a very strict area of engagement and won't attack you or be attacked till you're close enough to have a conversation. And like MMOs, you have abilities you can trigger, except they're slow as fuck and can't be cancelled once you start. Once again, none of this feels natural at all. But while I don't care for the combat system mechanically, the fights themselves against these giant monsters are pretty cool. In general, every fight in this game needs to be approached as a boss battle in any other game, because that's basically what they are. Hunts, which are time limited, typically start with you trying to locate tracks, feathers, mucus, all sorts of lovely stuff, to try and get onto the monster's trail. To be honest, I'd be happy enough if this is what you had to do all the time, but instead your screen will get mobbed with completely overdone glowfly thingies that basically just become the world's most intrusive objective marker. Yeah, try enjoying the scenery when all you can see is green shit, fucking hell. Once you're able to actually see them, the monsters in this game are awesome, and as I was saying, the fights are great as they become these multi-stage chases across the map. Though sometimes these honestly do drag on a bit too long, shooting at the same weak spots for minutes at a time before they inevitably run off to the next designated area where we can repeat it over and over again. I like these battles on the whole, but it's stuff like this which is why I was only ever to play this game in small bursts, and ultimately prevented me from getting fully invested. Again, there is a lot to love here, but I just don't think it's for me, which is really not something I say often about a game. I'd be interested to know what more long-term fans of the series thought of this installment, as well as other newcomers. Also, in other people's experiences, how possible and actually enjoyable was this game to play solo, versus playing with a group of friends. I am genuinely interested in the overall community's opinion. But, you know, I'd rather avoid friends. Other people. Ugh. I don't dislike the game, quite the opposite, I did enjoy what I played. But I think if it was to come down to a single point, this was more of a case of misplaced expectations than anything else. Number 7. Ubisoft is a fucking abomination! I had to make that perfectly clear before I could get any other words out for this next game. I don't really play Ubisoft games. I jumped into Rainbow Six Siege late in the game, but even there only because of this asshole, and only when I found it under a third of the original price. And while it may have proven to, at least in age, develop into a good game with a fairly healthy community, even it suffers from this stifling, money-grubbing cuntery of Ubisoft. Sure, I don't play the game as regularly as some of its more hardcore fans, but the fact I haven't, in the 8 or 9 months or so of owning the game, earned enough renown to unlock a single new operator yet, never mind one of the 16 billion cosmetic options, gives an indication of just how much of a grindathon this game's set up to be. Just as a blatant effort to pressure people into spending real money on booster packs or on operators outright through the sheer assault on player patience. I just want my girl Dokubi, dammit! Anyway, all that had to be said before I could continue, and I will need to return to the issue of shady corporate bullshit before this is over. But for now, and without further ado, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. The greasy one. Yeah, so I haven't played an Assassin's Creed game since the first one. For about 15 minutes. It wasn't very good, so this is a series I followed entirely as an outside observer, at most checking in once in a while just to see what time era they're climbing about now. Quite like the Call of Duty franchise, it's one of those where the latter entries all kind of blended together in my mind. Without a Google search, I honestly couldn't tell you which out of Unity or Syndicate was London one, or which came out first. Was it the American Revolution, then France, then London, then Egypt? Or shit, I forgot about the pirate one. Which one had jetpacks? Now the point I'm trying to get to is Odyssey actually turned out to be quite an ideal game for me to try. Because of my total lack of buy-in on the series beforehand, I don't feel like I'm perpetuating the money train of these annualized same shit every time games. And of all the AC games, one set in ancient Greece appeals to me by far the most out of any other setting so far. And perhaps most appealing of all, the last Assassin's Creed game, Origins, showed a change in direction for the series to more of an historical action RPG, and less part of this sprawling, convoluted Assassins, Templars, conspiratorial time and space alien gods or something. What? Like Origins, if not more so, Odyssey looked to be a fresh start for this series, and set so far before any other game. Ironic, considering Origins' apparent premise of being, well, the origin. This hopefully meant that, as a newcomer, I wouldn't have to deal with the baggage of the series, and this seemed to be the case. At least for a few hours, but no spoilers, I guess. So, you choose between one of two male or female protagonists, Cassandra and Alexios. Interestingly enough though, regardless of who you choose to play, the other person actually still exists within the story, and in a pretty big way too, not to give anything away. But I think this was pretty cool. Starting out on the island of Kefalonia as a small-time mercenary, or Misthios, a word you'd better get used to hearing a lot, by the way.
Misthios. 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 Shitface!
You eventually find yourself venturing out into the larger Greek world in the midst of the Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta, as the various threads of your quest take you across this gigantic world map. Now I'm not going to get into the story because there are a couple of twists and shit to it, and honestly I was, at least as far as I got into it, enjoying it enough that I don't think it deserves to be spoiled. Don't ask me how this compares to previous Assassin's Creed, but compared to other games in a similar vein, I thought the main story was serviceable. It's not Horizon Zero Dawn levels of emotional investment, but the world and setting work, and the main character is likeable enough and interesting enough to drag me along. Right until it got stupid, but we're not talking about that. Seriously though, I know the animus and all that is kind of your shtick Assassin's Creed, but honestly, I'd been fine with this just being a game about ancient Greece. No timey-wimey genetic memory bullshit. Drop the brand entirely, damn it. Gameplay lobs a bit of everything from the third-person action game mechanics buffet onto its plate. I don't mean to denigrate Odyssey alone for this, everyone's guilty of it at this point, even games I love. But all I'm saying is, if you've played any game for the last few years where there's stealth, parkour, and archery, you've basically played this game. We've got the BioWare-style dialogue wheel and everything just to complete the package, and again, I'm not shitting on what this game's doing, it's just, yeah, I kind of feel we pretty much know the drill at this point. I've seen it done better, and I've seen it done worse. Also, with the dialogue wheel comes obligatory romance options, though honestly, these are some of the laziest implementations of romance I've ever seen. Greetings, compatible human! We have had at least one conversation before this one, let's bang, okay? I can't deny I did get enjoyment out of sneaking into heavily guarded fortresses, picking off soldiers one by one and piling their bodies in a shed. So long as it's calling itself an Assassin's game, I might as well do the whole assassin thing. Sure, the game has a focus on the bulky armors of the era, a variety of melee weapons from swords to warhammers to staffs and spears, but sure, let's pretend like we're sneaky assassins. More to the point, the game itself can't seem to make up its mind half the time if it wants us to charge through the front gate to take on armies head on, or use stealth. Certainly when the game decides to throw in enemies who won't die from stealth strikes and therefore make the sneaky option impossible, I do get the feeling it's mostly the former. Fine then, with stealth ruined, let's see what the game offers at the complete opposite extreme. Large-scale battles are implemented into this game, fitting into the wartime backdrop, and providing a more or less constant opportunity for battle as these territorial disputes will crop up anytime one of Greece's many regions reaches a low enough security rating, and assuming they are bordered somewhere by enemy-held territory. This means, of course, that by raiding military camps and fortresses, burning war supplies, or even going out of your way to assassinate political leaders can prompt these battles, and regardless of whose supplies you've been torching and leaders you've been shanking, in the middle of the day, with absolutely no defenses. Assassins! You can throw in with either side depending on whether you want the area to change hands or retain the status quo. The battlefields themselves feature tons of both Spartan and Athenian troops, and it's quite actually impressive. I still just naturally expect even today for the background to be populated with sprites or just looping animations of cardboard cutout soldiers, but no. Every soldier here is real and can be fought, and sometimes these battles can be pretty tough with your AI buddies seemingly always at a disadvantage, forcing you to be killing every commander and rival mercenary as fast as humanly possible just to stay in the green. Also, shield guys can fuck off in general. Just fuck off. While I love the idea of these battles though, they wear thin pretty quickly. It's a shame because the technology is impressive, but a change from big open field would be nice. And it's a real bastard that these battles always start the bloody same. Accept mission, fade to black, excessively long loading screen, and now we're in the middle of a fucking brawl. I'd have loved to see the initial charge, to see two formations clash into each other before spilling out into a melee, arrow volleys, cavalry charges, but no, it's just fade in, and apart from a few seconds of seeing the broken enemy retreat, it's just fade out again after it's done. Really kills the immersion. I suppose the third pillar holding Odyssey up is the naval combat. Once again, like stealth and like open battles, it's a mixed bag. There's some great stuff here, really. Simply sailing the open water in this way is relaxing in its own right, and when things heat up, the naval battles can be actually pretty epic, with volleys, ramming and boarding leading you to fighting enemy sailors up close and naturally Sparta kicking them off their own ships at every opportunity. But what ruins this for me is the all too common situation of being trapped in a completely unwinnable, completely illogical situation, where a quick paddle from one port to another gets aggro on you from some pirate ships. Ordinarily, not really a big deal. 1 or 2 or 3 ships even are manageable. But when the fuckers won't stop spawning, your ship doesn't regen enough between boardings, and I'm actually just not returning to the wheel of my ship because the moment I do, it's just gonna restart combat and I'm gonna get mobbed. This happened to me an annoying number of times. Stay and fight and you'll inevitably die because more hostile ships will just keep wandering into the area. Try to run? Well, you don't seem to have any speed advantage over them, so just gotta hope your ship's health bar lasts longer than their AI is programmed to chase you for. Fucking hell. I suppose this encourages you to upgrade your ship, which I did. Better hull, better speed, better weapons, even recruiting lieutenants with various bonuses. Hey, remember women who I had that deep and engaging relationship with earlier?
Before we get serious, how about we finally have some fun?
I do enjoy your attempts. Tell me, what is it that's meant to make me swoon this time?
If you undress me, I think you'll find out.
Yeah, you can recruit her to your crew, which is cool. Except you'll never be able to talk to her again. She's just generic sailor AI with woman's skin. But anyway, the point was, even with these absurdly expensive, resource-intensive upgrades, both on land and at sea, you always feel less powerful than you should be. This brings us to the last thing I really have to say on Odyssey, and really, considering everything until now was mostly nitpicks that don't ruin an otherwise enjoyable game, this was what forced me to put this well down to the bottom half of the list. This shit. Once again, we have a single player game with a microtransaction store. A store I've only ever visited outside this recording by accidentally slipping on the directional pad while paused, and oh look, you're in the store now! Like, fuck off with that. On top of the as-to-be-expected armour and weapons for sale, they've got XP boosters, horse, ship and crew skins, and resource bundles. Now I can already hear people saying, well, it's just cosmetic, at least regarding the skins. And as for the in-game money you buy with out-game money, or the resource bundles needed for upgrading shit, well, you can require all that in the game too. This is just for people who want a faster route, who want a shortcut. Well, if that's the case, then good on those fucking degenerates. But if you've created a game world and an in-game economy where Drachimir, lumber, iron and all the other resources, and not to mention XP, are all made so grindy, slow and painful, and most importantly less entertaining to earn through gameplay than by plugging in your credit card details on storefront, then sorry to say, but you've probably made a pretty shit game. Enemies at absurdly high levels, gear never being good enough, the XP gain slowing to a dribble, boss fights becoming tedious chip away at health bar forever affairs, but just reminding you that we've got the XP boosts right here, all the resources you could ever need, just pause menu away. Can you see the problem? Single player, multiplayer, I don't care, this is unacceptable. Play should be rewarded with the gear and experience required to progress naturally into the next portion of the game, and not only is deliberately kneecapping players in order to coerce them into paying for the easy route just despicable, it's objectively bad game design. For a game and a game series trying to become an RPG, its utter failure in the simple granting of experience and level appropriate gear would be laughable, if not obviously a corporate decision to continue the monetization of every single aspect of the universe. Maybe I'll take a cue from Ubisoft. Next time I run a D&D session, rather than reward my guys with XP or a fancy new item for their quest, I'll just give them an uncommon iron sword, dealing less damage than the one I already have. And oh look, your next quest is going to be exponentially higher level difficulty. But hey, if you want, just totally optional, by the way. You don't have to. But give me a fucking tenner right now, and I'll increase your XP gain by 10% for the next hour. I'll even throw in a fucking unicorn skin for your horse.
Watch where you're going! Slow down! No! You're on fire! Do something! I'm on fire!
Number 6. Where to start with this next one? Jurassic World Evolution. This may have been my most anticipated game in 2018, sparking that childlike excitement in me upon its announcement, and with good reason. After 15 years, we were finally getting, even if not officially stated as such, a successor to Jurassic Park Operation Genesis, a game I still hold as one of my all-time favourites. And I can say now, right out of the gate, I had a lot of fun with Evolution. I really enjoyed my time with it. But that's in spite of its many issues that became evident basically within the first few minutes of playing the game. But we'll get to those. Like its predecessor, it's a park building management simulator. Made by Frontier Developments, the studio behind Roller Coaster Tycoon, this game puts the player, ostensibly, in the position of park manager, tasked with planning and building these island theme parks, balancing finances, and overseeing the creation of its prehistoric attractions. Or I suppose, as John Hammond once described it,
build a park, create dinosaurs, and entertain people.
Once up and running, with a variety of species, these islands are beautiful and just relaxing to sit back and watch. Or at least they would be if I didn't have to refill feeders every 6 fucking seconds. The dinosaurs are naturally the main attraction here, and I am totally happy with the variety we're given. Even without the 5 deluxe edition inclusions, the 6 free editions with the Fallen Kingdom update, or the 8 and other paid DLC, there's still 37 species in the vanilla game. For comparison, Operation Genesis had 25, which was still ample. And minus the occasional wonky jaw or glitched appendage, these animals are stunningly beautiful. Just fucking majestic. If there's one thing Evolution nailed, it was the dinosaurs. Well, apart from nerfing my boy Giganotosaurus into some kind of miniaturized mockery of an existence, why, Frontier? Why did you do that? Oh sure, you fixed its size in an update later, but don't think we've forgotten. Unfortunately, from this point on, every positive this game has comes with some annoyance holding it back. I could spend a while tearing into the problems here. It's actually quite hard to know where to start. The best way might actually be for a quick one-to-one comparison with the very game this is trying to recreate. Here's a rough guide to your first hour or so of Operation Genesis. You start off on a screen where you can create the island landmass. How forested do you want it? How many rivers, hills, shape, etc. It's not super detailed, but it's there. We start with a blank slate, and it's up to us to decide where to plant our visitor centre, how the amenities and attractions will be laid out. We don't have a ton of starting capital, so we have to make sure to at least have our first attraction ready to go. The game will randomly choose between a selection of starting fossil sites and randomly provide enough of a completed DNA sequence for at least one of the species from this location. But this means you won't always start the game with the same dinosaur. While we're growing our first dinosaur, we can have a think about our future developments. I think I'm going to focus on the largest, most dangerous carnivores, so I'll obviously start researching improved fences. I'm now happy to open the doors to the public, raise the ticket cost a little, and watch the money slowly tick in. Oh, I've gained a star rating. This means I can unlock a dig site of my choice. I want carnivores, so North Africa? Maybe North America for the T-Rex? Whatever's your priority. Okay, now on to Jurassic World Evolution. We open onto the first island. There are 6 pre-made islands in this game, and we unlock them in a set order. Okay. Oh, all this stuff's been built already. I didn't ask for this, but thanks. Can I turn the tutorial off? I don't like being told how to do my job. Build one of these here. Make 2 of these dinosaurs there. What if I had other ideas? Fuck you, apparently, that's what. Oh, we're already getting visitors? Well, so much for the grand opening. I didn't even know. Okay. I'm still doing what you're telling me. I hope this hand-holding shit is just for this island because I really don't like it. Okay, let's try researching better fences. Oh, I can't. I need to complete random challenges to unlock stuff. I'm sorry, who the fuck's running this company? Okay, I've unlocked a new dig site. And it's a predetermined unlock on a set order. Let me guess, Giganotosaurus is endgame only, right? Yep. This is not the sandbox experience I was hoping for. You're handheld the entire time. Each park is treated as a level en route to some end goal, rather than the sole endeavour, thus making it hard to really give a shit about most of them. The starting island, past the on-rails stuff and tutorial feeling, was okay, but far too small of a build space, deliberately nerfed AI to where dinosaur breakouts could never happen outside from scripted moments. Yes, scripted moments, and you were simply blocked from discovering new species until you moved on to the next island. Next, it's the deliberately trying to ruin your day island with scripted storms and power outages. Fun! Then it's the here have no money island, because we're out of ways to make this game artificially challenging. Then it's perpetually nighttime no build space island, where I basically just created a prison complex for high value species stuck in battery farm cages till I could scrape in the bare minimum requirement to unlock Islasorna, and only then, for the first time in the game, I actually felt like I was being given some agency to build how I fucking wanted. But even then, not entirely, because these assholes. The game has 3 divisions, representing 3 perspectives on Jurassic World. Science, entertainment, and security, each vying for your attention, granting you rewards like technology unlocks or new species for completing certain tasks and improving your reputation in each faction. Again though, this is kinda shitty. Nah, you can't research the high security fence, boss. You haven't improved your reputation with us, the friendly security division, yet. Alright, fine, what do you want me to do? Oh, nothing much. First, just breed a Velociraptor and a Dilophosaurus. Okay, annoying. I had no plans for raptors on this island. We're out of build space as it is, so I'm gonna have to move the Ankylosaurus into the sauropods. Great, now that you're done with that, all you have to do is make them fight to the death. Excuse me? You heard me. You want the high security fence, don't you? Well, yeah, it's absolutely required. Well, make them bleed. How does this help with security exactly? I don't know. But if we strap missile launchers onto them... Oh my god, this is just that awful military dinosaurs plot point from Fallen Kingdom, isn't it? The American army can use this to their advantage. Fuck off! Not only are these missions nonsensical, they constantly remove player choice from the equation. Make a T-Rex. I don't want to, but sure. Okay, well now we're gonna make the T-Rex instantly unhappy and try to escape. Wait, what? Why? He has food, he has space, he has water. Now he's eating the public. But it's fine, this was all a test. And you passed. Here, have increased reload speed for your rangers. What? I swear, Evolution takes as many cues from the Jurassic Park mobile games than Operation Genesis, with a constant stream of randomly generated mundane tasks. Build 1 hotel, build 4 storm stations, build 6 fast food stores. I'm not even kidding, these are actually the quality of missions in this business management simulator. It'd be fine if these were entirely optional, but if you don't appease these entitled little shits, the whingy, criminally unstable bastards will start sabotaging your park. Oh, you didn't sell $10,000 worth of fossil material? Guess I'll have to poison the animal food supplies now. Oh, you didn't build a bowling alley? On an island that already has 12 fucking bowling alleys? Oh well, time to disable the power leading to the gruesome deaths of dozens of visitors. You're all fucking fired. Even the main pre-scripted missions are badly designed. One of the final missions in the game might as well be called deliberately do everything wrong just so it all fucks up, but also you'll fail if everything fucks up. In a park that I already had functioning and running in a way I was happy with each species at a comfortable population density and optimal acreage per animal, science lady demands I make 2 Pentaceratops, 2 Apatosaurus, 4 Triceratops, 3 Kentrosaurus, and 1 Midrocanthosaurus. Release them all into the same habitat, which in my case due to space constraints meant into the already max capacity safari area, and then ensure they all stay alive and in their enclosure for 5 minutes. Fun fact, Metriocanthosaurus is a carnivore. 9 of the other 11 dinosaurs on that list are also herbivores that can easily kill a carnivore. The other 2 herbivores on that list are the moodiest gits on the planet and need no more excuse than not enough trees to start smashing up shit. If any one of these dinosaurs escapes, you fail and need to start again. If anyone dies, you fail and need to start again. If you sedate your dinosaurs, the game reckons you're making things too easy, so the timer stops, leaving me with no bloody option than to tranquilize every dinosaur not involved in this batshit experiment. Meanwhile, I had to manually take control of a jeep and just keep pumping medical darts into everyone who was trying to kill each other, while also simultaneously managing a fleet of helicopters sedating and transporting the long-necked bastards as far away from the fences as possible, just to try and buy myself more time while I repair damages, all of which made the quest take 3 times longer than it was supposed to because the timer keeps pausing, and I don't see how this benefits science, you fucking mad woman! But moving on. There is one more island in the game, a blank slate with probably the largest and least awkward build space, though still less than preferable, intended as a sandbox island. With unlimited money and nobody whinging in your ears to construct additional pylons, I actually spent 2 or 3 days quite relaxingly resculpting the land and planning out the final perfect park, capable of housing every one of the game's species I finally unlocked. This was tricky, and honestly, if not for the sandbox options to disable breakouts, it wouldn't have been possible. But I now have a park I'm actually really happy with. Apart from the frame rate drop, this is probably the most fun I've had with the game, even if the only challenge involved is simple space management. But at least I can actually enjoy my dinosaurs now. I should point out now that some of the smaller issues in the game have been patched. AI updates have finally given dinosaurs proper herding and pack behaviours, which will hopefully keep those apatosaurs from throwing tantrums because I'm lonely, where's me mates? They're over fucking there. Just walk back to them. No, I'm just gonna break out here because I'm lonely. Oh no, Bob's gone. Now we're all lonely. I swear it's not the raptors, the T-Rex, or even the goddamn Indominus you have to worry about. Social herbivores are the fucking worst. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah. Updates have added group behaviour, sleeping, made Giganotosaurus the right size, and all the other things Operation Genesis already had, but whatever, I'll give credit for addressing some of the problems on the list. But the real issues with Evolution, I worry, are too ingrained. Overly linear progression, lack of build space, serious lack of visitor attractions, and I'll even say, as well recreated as some of these buildings are to those in the Jurassic World movies, they really don't help with the already overly sterile, overly clean looking parks. I've been happily returning to my park to make tweaks, add the DLC additions, or just browse, but I have no real desire to start a new game. Why restart just to make islands that look and feel identical to ones I already spent time on? There's not enough space to be more creative in park layouts, the species will always unlock in the same order as before, and at the end of the day, every park will look and feel too similar. So yeah. Longer review for this one, and I'm clearly torn on it. There's things I absolutely love about Evolution, and some things I can't stand. On the whole, it was, and still continues to be, a positive experience. I just feel it had so much more potential and somehow managed to take an already perfectly good formula and fuck it up in what I can only call mobile game bullshit. Still, it's an enjoyable enough game that I'd recommend to any Jurassic Park fan less familiar with the park building, business management genre, who likely see through how shallow it is in those areas. But as a pure dinosaur showcase, and once the freedom of the endgame has been achieved, it at least has a lot of merit there. Number 5. Spyro, the Reignited Trilogy. Honestly, I'm still not quite sure how I should be reviewing these sort of shot-for-shot remake games. Certainly they are full-fledged remakes. Totally qualifies a new release, as opposed to those Skyrim-style remasters which just polish up the existing assets a bit. But between this and the excellent Crash remake last year, what should I be assessing? The core gameplay itself, all of which has been carried over from a much older game? Or how good of a recreation is it from those older games? I don't know. Certainly it helps in this case that the classic Spyro games were already a ton of fun, and I'm pleased to say that even in our cynical modern world with its bloated game industry where people don't want single player experiences, they only want live services that nobody fucking asks for, despite all that, the Reignited Trilogy still manages to be a great buy. Like the Crash games, I did play these back in the day, though to be honest, even though I still loved the Crash remake and was totally nostalgic for me, I actually am quite a bit more familiar with the Spyro series. I only ever played Crash 2, whereas I played Spyro 2 and 3 to completion more than once between myself and my siblings. And the recreation here is spot on. It's a beautiful game, certainly graphically, but it's also retained all that colour and creativity that I remember on the original PlayStation. But as I said, I only ever played the second game, Gateway to Glimmer, or Ripto's Rage if you're wrong, and the absolutely amazing third one, Year of the Dragon. Also tried a bit of Enter the Dragonfly on the PS2, but don't think I cared for it much, and anyway, that's not included in this conversation. So, first time seeing the original game for me, in a sense, and yeah, I don't think I missed too much. Even here you can tell the first Spyro was a little lacking compared to its sequels, more in content than anything else. The maps are at times a little bit sparse, and there's entire worlds I just couldn't wait to be done with. I seriously spent about 3 minutes solid in the Insane Asylum world. Bailed as soon as I realised I'd already met the gem requirement to move the fuck on. Gameplay was still fun, and this applies to all 3 games. The platforming, collectathon type stuff is great for any completionists out there. If you're the kind of person who has to 100% the LEGO games, you'll be hunting through these different worlds for every last gem, egg thief, and of course, the crystal imprisoned dragons, who are technically the main point of the plot, though are basically, like most things, entirely optional. Speaking of which, it's pretty cool that every dragon in the first game is unique. They went to all this effort of designing and creating and voicing all of these individual characters for you to rescue throughout the game and talk to, and then have the odd douchebag make his grand appearance just to go, thanks, then fuck off, never to be seen again.
Thank you for releasing me.
Well, fuck you too, mate. By the way, not a complaint, just an observation, but why are all the dragons dudes? You know, there's nothing wrong with lady dragons. Just saying. To the matter of plot, in the first game, it exists, but it's about as straightforward as you can possibly get. Basically, the dragons cause an international incident by insulting a foreign leader on live TV, retaliatory strike turns all the dragons except Spyro, for some reason, to crystal, ends with invasion and regime change. I don't know, I guess one could say that there's blame on both sides, but whatever. The preceding games though start to add much more character, with more involved villains and allies and that greedy fat fucking bear bastard, fuck you moneybags. Onto the second game and into the third, levels are a lot more condensed with stuff, which I love. 5 minutes into Gateway to Glimmer and I re-remember just how much I love these games. The amount of side content, almost always tied to the multiple collectibles per game, just gives these so much more to keep you occupied. There's not really much else to say. I already like these games and the remake does it more than justice. The music, something which I always loved in the originals, is both remade here and has a toggle in the options to swap at any time between the classic and these re-recordings. I suppose if I had any complaints, the control scheme and camera in particular could do with a little bit of improvement. I know game controls generally were a lot clunkier back on the original PlayStation anyway, but some of that clunk is still here. But really, I'm much more bothered by the camera, which lags behind Spyro so that you'll be trying to turn, quite possibly in the middle of combat, and now you can't see where you're going. Toggling between active and passive camera in my tests didn't seem to do shit either, but I did eventually find out the L2 trigger manually reverts the camera behind the player. But I'm nitpicking. Honestly, Reignited Trilogy is an excellent addition to the ongoing series of remakes in recent years, which I'm glad I picked up. You gotta wonder what's up for remake next though. Croc, Legend of the Gobbos? Alex the Kid in Miracle World from 1986? And don't get me started on Dino Crisis game. Do it, Capcom! But yeah, for now, we got Spyro, and I'm happy. Next.
After all, I'm just doing my job.
Yeah!
You have died, along with everyone else on the Earth.
Number 4.
Colors weave into a spire of flame. Distant sparks call to a past still unnamed. Bear this torch against the cold of the night. Search your soul and reawaken the undying light.
Super Smash Ultimate. Well, this was a surprise. For me, I mean, probably not for anyone else. The whole fucking planet seems to love this game. In retrospect, having more time to play this game, with this video being so late, has actually been a surprise benefit. With Smash itself already being a kind of last minute release, coming out December 7th last year, it really wasn't until playing it with Sam throughout January and really getting to grips with it and working through the 700 billion unlockable characters that I started to love it. So technically I have played a Smash game before. Once. But for all intents and purposes, I'm new to this. But everybody seemed to be losing their shit at its announcement, and this was a kind of event game, so having a Switch now, I felt a little bit obligated to give it a go. And happy I did. Starting out with a handful of characters, there's a number of game modes you can go ahead with, each one of them contributing towards the unlock of further fighters, which, as far as I'm concerned, is the only objective of the game. There is a story mode here, but in all honesty, I spent way more time with the classic modes for all the characters, following predetermined sets of levels specific for those characters, which, in the case of Sam and myself, kinda just left us to fill in the gaps of the plot. You know, why is Donkey Kong suddenly fighting people on top of a plane? Who knows? Regular Smash mode simply pits you versus up to 3 other characters. Though honestly, I enjoy this game a lot more as a 1v1 than the clusterfuck it can otherwise become. Though the one-time clusterfucks are a good thing, is in Century Smash, a horde mode-esque fight to knock out 100 enemies as fast as possible. Having accumulated a good chunk of the roster by now, I really like just the amount and variety of fighters there are here. I have my favourites, each quite situationally dependent. Me Silverback Donkey Kong, of course, for crowd control. My girl Samus is a speedy bastard. The Pokemon trainer with his Squirtle, Ivysaur and Big Boy Charizard is a lot of fun. And of course, the MVP. For my own editing's sake, I want to keep this one short, but thankfully there's not really much to talk about, aside from individually discussing each character. The maps are varied, really creative, and thankfully for some of the more visually assaulting ones, there are simplified, platformed versions. I can't speak to the multiplayer because, once again, Steven doesn't play online, but I've played matches against friends just on my Switch, both 1v1 and 4 players with 2 AI. The AI in general, I can say, is a bit of a bastard, and the game does throw you into the deep end with no real training. There is a practice room hidden in the layers of menus, but smacking around a dummy is one thing, fighting an opponent who doesn't pull punches is another. So maybe just expect your first matches to be a bit painful until you figure out what the fuck you're doing. The only real criticism I can muster is those menus. The interface in general, actually. We had a hell of a time just trying to get the Joy-Cons to work as 2 separate controllers. And even when we did figure it out, it's still fucking stupid. Menus hide sub-menus, which hide sub-menus, and it's all a bit all over the fucking place. But yeah, not much else to say. It's a hell of a lot of fun, and I'm glad I took the gamble on the game. I had no idea how much I'd actually enjoy. But fuck it, it's been a year for me in fighting games apparently. Oh, also photo mode. Number 3. I remember being told once that my taste in games was very dark, typically depressing, dystopian, post-apocalyptic balls of agony, and in general, the person who said that might have been onto something, considering the general themes of a lot of my favourite games. But saying that, maybe that comment got to me more than I realised. Having just got done praising the hell out of Spyro and Smash Ultimate, I guess we're continuing with the family-friendly content in Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, and Let's Go Pikachu if you're wrong. It's a Pokemon game. What do I actually need to say? But more than that, it's also technically a remake, so we have that whole dilemma again. So, I like Pokemon. I grew up in the 90s, so that's basically the default setting, but like a lot of people, I didn't really keep up with the franchise as it moved on into later generations. Now, this is the point where it'd be easy for me to start beating the everything after Gen 1 sucks, except for maybe some of Gen 2 because Cyndaquil was adorable and Totodile's my wee snappy boy drum, but in all honesty, I don't really care. Like whatever you want, or don't. I'm not going to start acting like I'm the arbiter of what is and isn't acceptable in franchise I tapped out of after Pokemon Yellow. Speaking of which though, this game is basically in every way a remake of that original run of Pokemon games, set in the Kanto region with the original 150 or 151 pre-order bonus Pokemon, but takes most inspiration directly from Pokemon Yellow, with its Pikachu, or in this case Eevee, depending on which version of the game you got, who will follow you around outside its Pokeball, riding on your head or shoulder, and act very much as a more personal companion in your adventure. Oop the snoot! For the most part, everything is as it was in those older games, beautifully recreated on the Switch. Travel from city to city, collecting gym badges, catching Pokemon, battling trainers, having all your travel plans foiled by a plant. This was such an enjoyable reintroduction to the series, and cutting to the chase here, I love it. There are a few departures from the original games that deserve mentioning though. For a start, the mandatory rival character, who Nintendo won't let me call him by his traditional name, the fascists. Ah well, the compromise works too. Yeah, ironically enough, in this version he actually isn't a prick. In fact, he's kind of overly nice to the point of annoyance. No. Go away. There's a lot of additional role-playing elements that just add a bit of extra flavour, from unlockable or purchasable outfits for both your avatar and your companion Pokemon, to one of my favourite additions being how you can actually let one additional Pokemon out of their ball at a time, letting them walk around with you and interact with the overworld, and you, and just in general be goddamn adorable. They actually removed the bike that you'd get in the original game for faster travel and replaced it, quite rightly, with the ability to goddamn ride around on the Pokemon who are big enough to. Now, not only is this just a nice addition to have a real in-game representation of your party Pokemon, and not only does this mechanic provide practical uses like mounts and random item finding, but spending time and interacting with your Pokemon actually has an unseen but background tracked affinity meter, which will actually cause Pokemon you spend a lot of time with to have random bonuses in battles, like extra chances to dodge or shaking off debilitating effects just to stop you worrying about them. Oh my god, humans don't deserve you. And a lesser but still relevant change, I appreciated the slightly more cinematic qualities this game has. I don't just mean literal cinematics, which are really nice, but just things like having recurring characters. As stupid as this sounds, the big one that got me was meeting Misty, you know, the second gym leader you beat early as fuck in the game, in the middle of a totally different city, and actually having dialogue with her outside of, "Hi, I'm your boss character for the day." This isn't the only time this happens as well, with cutscene encounters with members of the Elite Four, the endgame opponents, early on, as if this story had, you know, actual setup to it. You have your rival, of course, as I mentioned, who does have more to do than just provide periodic battles, in some cases even joining forces with you on 2-on-2 fights. And then, of course, we come to these assholes. I fucking love these guys. We can all agree, right, that Team Rocket were the best thing about the old anime, right? And having them here as a regular appearance is generally awesome. Come on, let me join you guys. I got like the outfit and everything. When it comes to changes from the original games though, there are some very questionable things that need to be covered. One of my earliest concerns came with finding out battles with wild Pokemon had been dropped entirely. This core portion of the original gameplay experience, battles with wild Pokemon, has been reduced to motion control lobbing balls at them. The motion control in itself being one of the issues. I did spend most of my time on this game playing on the TV, and an attempt to lazily play some Pokemon while half asleep on my sofa was foiled by this mandatory motion control ball lobbing, with which me lying down and not directly in front of my console was messing up. Then of course you have Pokemon moving around the screen, and for a while I didn't actually know how to throw Pokeballs in any other direction than straight in front, since tutorials only dealt with stationary center screen Pokemon, making these encounters just turn into waiting for the bastard to jump back into the middle of my view. And I know I'm not the only one who had this issue too, since I was actually only made aware of the ability to throw sideways by another reviewer sharing the same problem. Also rant about Pokemon never staying in the fucking balls, even when it's Ultra Balls I'm using all the goddamn time. Perfectly on target, excellent rating, again, and again, and again, and fuck off Snorlax, you fat piece of shit! But I suppose this random chance element has always been in the games, but you know, before you could just beat the shit out of them to make it easier and all these other things. Here it's just annoying. With all that said though, my actually pretty serious early concerns that this was going to be a very bare bones experience started to fall away as actual combat began to present itself, with the plentiful number of Pokemon trainers around this world, even after completing the main game, which was an extra surprise for me. Yeah, quick aside to talk about some of the questionable word choice and translations in this game. No, that's not an okay thing to say. Christ, the creepers you run across when randomly searching rooms on a cruise ship, who'd have thought? Leaving now. As an admitted layman to these games, I don't really feel like I'm in a position to rate how combat holds up compared to Pokemon's usual standard. I will say I love the animations, the camera angles, and just the 3D models of all the Pokemon in general are gorgeous. I do feel like there's some problem with it though. I know Pokemon's not the most tactical of games, amounting mostly to rock paper scissors mechanic with types of weaknesses, but combat has generally sat on one of two extremes for me. For the overwhelming majority of the game, so long as you're leveling with or ahead of the world, combat is piss easy. 9 times out of 10 you can just use the same special attack and one-shot almost anything. Gym battles or the sort of milestone boss fights might be a little bit tougher, but my brave little Bulbasaur's attrition tactic of Sleep Powder then Leech Seed and Razor Sleeve to victory would usually work. What's the issue though? I just feel that if a single attack is enough to end most fights, A, there's not much strategizing, and B, you'll be seeing the same animation a lot. Also a reason for me to regularly swap party members. But then there's the 1 in 10 flip side of the problem, where even at comparable levels, I've been on the receiving end of insta-kill special attacks. Whether through bad luck with their Pokemon getting the first move with a higher speed stat, or me simply not having the right Pokemon for the situation set as my first party member. Christ, I've been in matches where my guy's either knocked out or 1 HP'd before they've even had a move, which puts me in a great situation. I can spend my turn healing, only to be right back to 1 HP again next turn, kinda making health potions fucking pointless, or I could swap out for another Pokemon, and concede another opportunity to attack, potentially ending up right back in the same position of having 1 HP, since they'll no doubt keep spamming the same one-shot ability. And quite often anyway, after a heal or a swap out, the opponent will end up getting 2 attacks in a row for some reason. Speed stats, I guess, but come on, it's not like my guys are that bad. I feel my guys tons of that special speed enhancing candy. At least that's what the guy sold me it told me was. Whatever. On the whole though, there's just so much I like about this game. I want to go over everything, but I just think I've hit the main points. It has its drawbacks, and some of the changes or simplifications might turn some people away, but on the whole, it's just such an enjoyable. That's the key word I keep coming to. Enjoyable, fun, charming, easygoing game, full of nostalgic joy, and as it stands, I'd be totally open to more similar Pokemon games on the Switch in the future. Number 2. Dragon Ball Fighters. Fighter Z. Fighter Z? Whatever. You may not know this, but I'm actually a bit of a Dragon Ball fan. Shocker, I know. But that said, I've never really been that into fighting games. Xenoverse 1 and 2 were more RPG with fighter elements, and of the select few Dragon Ball games I've played before, they were amusing, but nothing I'd really play for fun. But when Fighters, yeah, we're calling it that, was first showcased, I was immediately sold, not just on the idea of a Dragon Ball themed traditional side-scrolling fighter game, but Good God, those visuals! This game is beautiful. The animation quality is top notch, the colour palette so vibrant, and the level of detail they went to recreate the feel of the show is second to none in the Dragon Ball gaming sphere. Attacks and choreography, ultimates and finishers are all pulled almost directly from the series, with key moments even recreated nearly shot for shot and appearing as dramatic openers or finishers to matches when specific criteria are met, which all in all adds this great cinematic quality to these fights. It has completely sold me on this art style for games, which, to put it bluntly, makes Xenoverse's 3D models look crap. I can't get over how nice this game looks, but that's just the first big draw. The gameplay itself, something which as a total novice to this sort of game was a bit off-putting, is, as far as I can tell, really easy to grasp, intuitive, forgiving to new players who have no combo mastery, and yet incredibly rewarding to pros who know exactly how to handle the characters in the roster. By all accounts, from people who are accustomed to this sort of game, Fighters controls and plays great, and as a direct result, became a major esports title in 2018, overtaking Street Fighter V as the tournament with the most registered competitors at EVO 2018. Though the roster is far more limited compared to something like Xenoverse, with its 7 billion characters, you got your pool, you got your brown pool, you got your guy with gun, green pool. The roster in Fighters, by comparison, is far more streamlined, but I really have no complaints. All characters included are ones I'd actually want. Got my boy Frieza, got my girl 18, my angry boy Black, and of course, Matthew Mercer. And with a steady stream of DLC character additions, the result has been a great variety of visually and mechanically distinct characters. Which I think brings us to the single player story mode. Rather than rehash the typical plot points of the Dragon Ball mythos, Fighters has an entirely new storyline, centered around a new villain, designed by series creator Akira Toriyama specifically for this game, Android 21. A previously unknown Red Ribbon Army android who, along with using the Namekian Dragon Balls to resurrect past series villains like Frieza, Cell and the Ginyu Force, has developed an energy suppressing wave which has knocked most of the Earth's heroes out of commission. There is more, however, and this is where the game kinda goes meta, in that you, the player, are literally and knowingly being transferred between characters through a so-called soul-linking technology developed by Android 21, and are the only means by which characters can tap into their suppressed powers. Yeah, it's all a little bit weird, but it's pretty funny to see Frieza freaking out that some filthy human is controlling his body.
You hold me back, and now you intend to lecture me? Stop wasting all this time, and just finish him off already! Now, do it!
Are we done here?
Now, on the whole, I do like the story mode, but there are some issues with it. First of all, though, I have to say that I love Android 21. The absolute batshit psycho that she is. I didn't know what to really expect from her, aside from having a not-so-surprised Majin transformation, but without spoiling anything, while crazy insatiable cannibal lady was all well and good for the first storyline, of which this game actually has 3 distinct arcs telling basically the same events from 3 perspectives, it was only in the third and final arc, from the perspective mainly of Android 18, that 21 became a pretty endearing and actually sympathetic character.
Let's hold off on the candy for now, and eat it once all the fighting is over. We can gather a lot of candy and throw a party.
Protect at all costs! And I'd say she was actually one of the biggest pros of the story mode, becoming unlockable in other modes once this arc is complete. Seriously, Toei Animation, please bring it back in future. That and Android 16. As mentioned though, the game has 3 routes, with the first being simply the good guys teaming up to take down 21 and fight other resurrected villains along the way, who are also being hunted down by the android. But it's honestly the second arc, from the bad guys' point of view, where I had by far the most fun and where the other major pros are. Frieza, Cell, Nappa, the Ginyus, all teaming up is awesome enough, but then joining forces with the good guys against their common foe just leads to all the best character interactions.
But if he's a baddie, why can't Boo beat him up?
Because we need this bad guy to help us beat up someone way worse. So you'll just have to wait to beat him up some other time.
What the hell is he He's ordering our destruction while we're standing right here!
To be perfectly honest, this arc really made the first one feel pointless. You still have access to all the good guys, Goku, Gohan, etc. But you also have all the evil bastards, and it's just so much more interesting because of it. And that's kind of a problem. While I enjoyed all 3 runs enough, the retread was unnecessary. In my opinion, it would have been much better to simply replace the first arc entirely with the simply more expansive villain arc, and intersplice it a little with the android arc, keeping all the great plot reveals and character stuff of the 3rd arc concerning 21 herself. Sure, this might technically leave the game with less campaign from a pure time spent perspective, but so much of it feels like padding anyway, with story-significant boss fights spread out between identical and kind of tiring fights with evil clones created by 21 in one of our more cray-cray moments, I presume. Overall though, I still think the story mode is worth it, just for the humour and the character stuff. Honestly, I'm really glad they put it in here. Aside from the story mode though, there is a limited arcade mode, practice room, custom battles and multiplayer modes, all accessible from the game's hub world. Note that I've only ever been around this hub world in offline mode, because for weeks even after getting the game, I'd be disconnected within seconds every time I tried to join online. So yeah, at least I got my Zamasu avatar that no one else will ever see. Practice mode is self-explanatory, but I will say it allows for photo mode by removing the HUD. And custom battles, really my go-to because Steven doesn't play online, allows full control from AI difficulty to match soundtrack. I had one criticism for a while in that matches were limited to the game's core 3v3 system, in which assists and swapping in and out characters was kind of how the game's combat was based around, but an update eventually added controls over this. So sure, you can do a 1v3, with you fighting through enemies solo, or set up a crazy difficult boss fight, Trunks, Vegeta and Goku versus a max AI difficulty Zamasu, or god forbid, Yamcha. I guess if I have any remaining nitpicks it would be further game modes. A slider for enemy health can make those custom boss battles a bit more like the epic slog they should be. Maybe something like Smash's Century Smash mode, where it's your chosen fighter versus an endless horde of enemies. A timed, survive X minutes in an unwinnable fight against some invincible dickhead. I don't know, just ideas. But with the Season 2 DLC now coming out and already 4 of the 6 new fighters revealed, Cauliflower or Kefla for number 5 maybe please, we will hopefully continue to see shake-ups in the core game. New modes, maps, settings, or maybe even skins? Who knows? In any case, it's a game I continue to watch and a well-deserved top game of 2018. Protect with your life! Number 1. I have to admit, for a while I really wasn't sure what to do about number 1 spot. Compared to previous years, there just wasn't any game I could really hold up to the level expected, that I could give an honest, from the heart endorsement to. Even this game in question was looking that way for a while, one I'd heard nothing but praise for, that I just couldn't get into for a long time. Fortunately though, once I broke through whatever barrier I was running against, this fantastic game ended up being one I couldn't put down till I was done. And that game is Marvel's Spider-Man. As far as the various superheroes go, Spider-Man and Spider-Man stories, whether movies, games, whatever, have always somehow managed to be the ones that resonate with me the most. As much as I am only a casual fan of the whole superhero genre, I'm a Spider-Man fan. Yeah, I am. I know the villains and stuff. We got Dr. Octopus Arms, Birdman, Sandface, Lizard Bloke. Anyway, point is, this game seemed immediately like something that could be really special. The story follows a slightly older Peter Parker who's been doing the Spider-Man gig for some time now. He's already fought a bunch of villains, saved the city countless times, blah 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 blah, and honestly it's a good place to start. Fuck knows we don't need to play through his high school years, and while I'm not going to go into how the story unfolds from there, it honestly, after binging the whole thing in 2 days, feels like a really solid TV series. The pacing and build-up is good, avoiding the Rockstar way of doing things by dragging things out for the first 90 hours of the game without getting to a point, but the story does feel at the same time like it's taking place over a couple of weeks. While avoiding plot details, it pretty effectively manages to balance the Spider-Man, web-swinging, crime-fighting action with the down-to-earth life of Peter Parker as he helps out Aunt May, or works his daily job with the heartbreakingly friendly Dr. Octavius. I actually like these parts a lot as they build a really solid bedrock for what ultimately is a heavily character-centric story.
I can't take this. You can and you will.
No, I can't take that.
You can take this money from me.
No, I can't take
Yes, you can.
No, I can't
For
take
God's
that.
sake, it's not much. Now take
No,
it.
I can't take that.
There are also the occasional stealth missions with Mary Jane or Miles Morales to break up the usual gameplay with something a bit different. And while sometimes these aren't the best, with some heavy NPC scripting on display and some really nonsensical sections of running right through enemies just to get to the next trigger and patrolling NPCs with absolutely zero peripheral vision, they're still a fun addition. And one mission in particular is Mary Jane sneaking around a hostage situation, calling out commands for Pete to take out guards before swapping perspective for the fight itself, was really cool. I did mention though my issues of trying to get into the game to begin with, and I think it mainly came down to the difficulty in the controls and the pretty steep learning curve associated with the combat and movement. There is a lot of different inputs here, and before spending hours and hours doing nothing but play the game to really get the controls into my head, there were too many instances of trying to hop to one platform stealthily and instead jumping into a mob of enemies, or being stuck on a wall climb, unable to web shoot to another wall, and just stupid shit like that. What sometimes doesn't help is the specificity of required input. There's a blocked hallway with a gap in the left. I try to jump the gap? Nope. Okay, I try to climb? Nope. Web shoot to the ceiling? Nope. Oh, okay, just that specific spot on the left of the wall, that's how. Fine. And that's not to mention the abundance of QuickTime events in the game. Though, to be honest, these don't bother me a whole lot, aside from quite often spoiling the flow of an amazing action set piece, where the QuickTime pops up unexpectedly in a cutscene and now everyone's dead. Thanks. Though to be honest, for the most part, even this game's QTEs are well integrated and still feel like gameplay rather than interactive cutscenes, a balance which very few games actually pull off. Combat, once mastered though, is insanely satisfying. I've had so much fun brawling with mobs of enemies, using the environment, gadgets, or just brute force to take them down. And there is no fucking way Pete hasn't killed at least a dozen people by this point.
No! No!
Oh no. Oh dear.
No!
No! No! Get back!
No! Stop! No!
Alongside an array of unlockable and awesome looking Spidey suits, and an actually useful skill tree, there's a ton of side content, from collectibles around the city, to some really quite amusing side missions, to photography and of course random crimes across this massive digitally recreated Manhattan. Oh, and don't forget the all-important photo mode. Seriously, every game needs a photo mode. There is no excuse. Once again though, the greatest takeaway I have from this game is the really engaging story. I went into this expecting awesome web swinging and fast crazy combat, and I of course got all that. But I wasn't expecting just this satisfying, engaging story. I wasn't expecting to feel feelings in my Spider-Man game, god damn it! You snuck them in there! But there's also some great character stuff, amazingly comic booky villains, and legitimately funny humour. The J. Jonah Jameson radio broadcasts in particular, just... thank you, Insomniac. Thank you for turning him into Alex Jones.
We've always assumed Spider-Man is a man with the attributes of a spider. But what if it's the reverse? What if somehow a spider gained the powers of a man, and he's stalking his prey? Somewhere there's a giant web with these poor pigeons stuck in it, waiting to be devoured. And will it stop at pigeons? Will we be next? I promise you this. I will not rest until I have the answers.
This game is fantastic, and honestly, it's one of the few games I actually care to 100% complete. There's not really much else to add, but I am happy to give this the #1 spot and highly recommend it to even any casual Spidey fan. Also, taking a cue from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there are of course multiple post-credit scenes, and given what's teased, I'd love to see a sequel from these developers. And given the Avengers are confirmed to exist in this universe, using Spider-Man to do for games what Iron Man did for the movies, I'm totally on board for seeing other heroes getting games in this same continuity. Just think of the unlockable suits Iron Man could have, that's all I'm saying. Anyway, on that, all that's left to say is thank you for watching. How do you feel about all the games I've showcased on this list? If you've played them, give me your own thoughts. If I've sold you on any of them, please let me know which ones, and also, you really shouldn't be taking my word on anything. That's a terrible idea. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I do hope this has been entertaining though, and not too weird coming out so late. But in any case, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all in 2022 for the top games of 2019.